Hey Cupgeeks, well I eventually finished setting up my research tank, and I'm going to start experiments actually pretty soon, and it's it's the end of May 2025 at the moment. Okay, now the final touch to the tank is the doser. You may have seen, and we'll do the whole thing, right? You may have seen some videos online where I've kind of showed you the doser and how we do tests at my college. This is somewhat similar, but it's a bigger tank, so it's slightly different. So if you have a bigger tank, this is probably the best way to do it. So the first thing is I got this from, believe it or not, the baby section of my local Target. It's like a baby kind of like plate cup kind of container, right? So babies eat their fruits out of this thing. And as you can see from the inside, hopefully, is I've got a three-way splitter essentially, which is for aquaria tubing, and that actually drills through a hole to the outside, which then follows the tube up to the doser. Okay, and the doser, I'll just grab one, and the doser is right here. This is a very kind of interesting device. This is actually, believe it or not, I'll say it, it's actually for enemas. It's an enema syringe. It's 500 milliliters, and that's what I wanted. So I wanted a 500 milliliter syringe, which I can then obviously attach to the hose, which eventually feeds into the doser. Now, at work, we've noticed that amino acids, they are denser than water, so they'll seep into the gravel, and they can, on occasion, start to seep back out and mess up your results. So what I've done, a little bit of magic, is I've actually bought this. This is essentially, I'm not sure what the name of the plastic is, but it's bakeware that's flexible, right? So flexible bakeware, and this is actually going to sit in the tank underneath the doser, so it will catch any extra amino acids. So I'll just show you that. So it's basically going to sit something like that on the bottom, and I'll show you that when it's set up and covered in gravel. The center kind of cup will be covered in gravel, and the amino acids will percolate in. I'll do a dye test today as well, show you that. So show you how the amino acids percolate with the dye, and you see this cup will fill up with amino acids, and then any spillover will get caught by the purple one, and cleanup will be easier. They won't get all through the tank gravel. Okay, alright, I'll set this guy up and show you the results in a moment. Okay, so I'm behind the camera now, and I'm just going to have a quick pan around. Sorry for any kind of shakiness in the footage. But there's the tank, and we'll zoom in. There is the doser. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so the doser is attached obviously to the small sippy cup, and buried underneath is that purple, I think it was purple, that purple catch tray. Okay, so if we move up, follow the line. The line moves up, moves out of the tank, and I've snaked it behind the pipes there so it stays out of the way. Exits the tank up here, and we come up to there it is. There is the dosing funnel. Okay, it holds up to 500 milliliters. The sippy cup itself takes about 150, and the tube's probably about 20. So I'll push through 250 to get a little bit of push over the lip, and we'll see that when we do the dye test in a minute. Thought you might want to see my fish. There they are. They're imaginatively named Subject 1, Subject 2, and Subject 3. That's a joke. They don't really have names, but I have a bit of a penchant for the white koi, as you can see. There's also in the tank somewhere a bullhead catfish, and also a plecostomus, which keeps the tank nice and clean of algae. Okay, nearly ready to go. As you can see, the funnel is filled to about 500 ml. Okay, and that's literally 2 or 3 drops of dye in just regular tap water. Okay, in a moment I'm going to open this valve here, which will allow the dye to flow into the dosing chamber. Okay, now before I do that, there are a few other minor details. If you do ever think about setting up a tank, you should probably think about. number one is I'm actually going to turn off the filters, okay, because a large amount of movement of water will disperse the amino acids or the dyes. If I, if I left them on, you'd see it. Disperse the dye or the amino acids really quickly through the whole tank. What you don't want to do is that, because you want a localized point source of amino acids which exude them just like a bait would. Okay, so you're trying to mimic the behavior of a bait in a very limited space, which has always been a hard thing to do with tanks. Okay, so I'll turn the filters off. However, having said that, I do leave 2 bar bubblers, so bar stone essentially with air coming through it, and they're at the far ends of the tank, so they literally push air up, they meet in the middle and push down, and then purposely the doser is right in the middle of the tank and it pushes it to both sides. And that's something I can do with a larger tank. If you've seen the other videos of my smaller third size tanks to this, about 50-gallon tanks at the college, we actually have it localized at one end, so we have a kind of a circulator like this rather than like this. So this, it's the first time I think I've ever seen a double bubbler setup, so we'll see how that goes in a moment with the dye test. So, I say a moment, I'll give it at least 20 minutes for the water to kind of calm down after I've turned the filters off and the fish to get used to just the bubblers. So let's get to it. Alright, it's been about 20 minutes. I'm going to let the dye run in. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully you're able to see the dye on the right as it snakes its way down the pipe. There it goes. Well, there's our first plume there. That's actually looking pretty good. I'm liking that. So if you can imagine, that's obviously dye, right? So imagine those plumes are of actual amino acid solution. That would be fantastic. Yes, very happy with that so far. We're about 200 milliliters from about 350. So that's 100 milliliters in. Epic, looking good. I'm actually impressed that it's flowing to the left and to the right, which was predicted by the flow pattern of the bubblers. Nearly there. Kind of interesting, it is kind of falling off to the left there because there's a kind of literally a gradient in the gravel. I think I'll make it more of a symmetric mound when I do the actual tests. Almost like a volcano, that'd be kind of cool. Amino acid volcano, yeah, that's neat. Okay, that's the whole lot, pretty much. I'm actually pretty happy with that. That's actually very, very good. Okay, I'm going to turn the pumps back on now, and we'll see how quickly it takes to dissipate. Okay, pumps are on. Oh, as you can see, that makes a massive difference immediately. So you can imagine doing the experiment with filters on, that would not maintain a localized concentration. So again, if you do this, make sure you turn those filters off and just have a couple of bubblers going just to keep the fish, the water oxygenated. Okay, that's all for now. See you guys next time.